Hi everybody, good to see everybody joining back. So actually interesting, and I'll just give it a few seconds for everybody to make sure they're back on, because one of the interesting things I've just been messaged whilst while we're doing the NHS clap was about the gun dog stuff. So me and Tarquin started to touch on gun dogs and what's going to happen. So and lots of you have been asking me to do more of these. One of the things that we are going to do, just to give you a rundown, is we are doing on the Monday the 12th of this month, I've got Ricky Maloney joining me, and we're going to talk about gun dogs. Interesting then, on the 18th of this month, which is a Monday, I've got Liam Stokes from the BGA, the new BGA chairman, who is joining me. And we can talk about the BGA. And then on the 27th of May, I've actually got Dan Reynolds, the director of Basque, joining us. So just stuff coming in future. So we started to talk about eyes. We started to talk about somebody currently shooting one eye shut. What I would say to you is, the first thing you need to understand is whether you're left or right eye dominant, whether you're shooting from your right shoulder. Let's assume you are. If you're shooting from your right, Ricky is the Tuesday the 12th, Charlotte, you should know that. If you're right-handed and right eye dominant, okay, then in theory, there will be an improvement by shooting both eyes open. Let's face it, we were given two eyes to judge speed and distance with, and if you can shoot both eyes open, then I would suggest it will be fractionally better, okay? But until you actually try things, I'm a massive believer in not altering things for the sake of altering it. So go and see an instructor if you can. Find somebody you know and somebody you like, and literally go and try it. Simple as that. It's one of those interesting things where you need to give everything a whirl once or twice. Guys, ask some questions away. I'm just going to fill up on one that I've been asked a lot also. People have been asking me that I'm a massive fan of videoing people about, so videoing yourself when you're shooting, okay, and looking at yourself, seeing what you look like, and making sure that you actually kind of, you look at how you want to look. What I also recommend is, don't just look at yourself. Try and find somebody that you can compare yourself with, okay? And of course, $1 million question is, who do I try and compare myself with? Now, there are lots of different people out there, and I need to be careful for not upsetting anybody. Personally, I'm a massive Richard Fowles fan. I know that a lot of people would say, well, he shot Olympic trap and what have you, but Richard shoots everything. The thing I like about Richard is when you watch him shoot, he never looks unbalanced, never looks flustered. His movements are incredibly effective, okay, and he shoots with great style. If you watch lots of the other people, okay, there are good people. Another one would be Solomon's, okay, is also well worth the watch if you can put up with the hairstyle. Dave Beardsmore, well worth the watch. Obviously George, you've got to have a little look at George and see what's going on. But as I say, I would come back to the Richard Fowles. John O'Irby, best advice for an inspiring instructor. Crikey, John, this is a good question. The best advice I can possibly give you is realise that it is going to take longer for you to become a professional shooting instructor than you think it is, okay? I'm afraid you need to start at the bottom and work up. There's lots of things that you can do to get yourself ahead of the game. For me, if you want to be a professional game shooting instructor, which is what I would classify myself as I'm not the person to teach you how to shoot fit ask or skeet or whatever, or any of those sorts of things. There are lots of people far better qualified than I am to do that. But if you want to be a game shooting instructor, you've got to get in front of game, okay? My belief is that you can't teach people to shoot game if you've never even seen it yourself. So the first thing you've got to do is you've got to get out there, often, unfortunately, for nothing. Okay, you've got to get out there, you've got to load on a grouse moor, you've got to load on a pheasant shoot, you've got to load on a partridge shoot. You've got to try and have an understanding of what's going to happen. The next thing is you need a qualification. Okay, I'm a fan of APSI, as you know. I'm not saying it's the be all and end all, but I think it is the best of them that are out there. And by the way, as far as I'm concerned, you're still not qualified. So you've done your APSI qualification. Now the real work starts. Okay, now you need to teach your corporates, and you need to get on somebody's shoulder. You know, you need to spend as much time with experienced instructors as you possibly can. I'll give you a classic example of this. You know, during the lockdown period, I was supposed to be having a lesson with Joe Neville. Okay, many of you know that Joe Neville, Olympic coach. Why was I having a lesson with Joe Neville? By the way, he was teaching me, not the opposite way around, because I want his knowledge. Okay, and I will go and spend time with anybody I think I can learn from. I think the shooting instruction is something where you never ever stop learning. So, you know, I'd like to think myself and lots of other people out there are incredibly approachable. So, you know, ask them if you can spend time with them, if they'll spend time with you. I think shooting instruction is an awesome career. I have had the best time, still are having the best time. I meet all sorts of different people. I travel all over the world. Okay, I love my job. So best advice is try and get onto a shooting ground. Try and find, you know, become a student on a shooting ground and make it happen. There is no doubt in my mind there will be a massive shortage of shooting instructors, particularly game shooting instructors, in about 5 years. Okay, so and I'm not talking about shooting instructors that are, you know, they've won something and suddenly they think they can become a shooting instructor. I'm talking about shooting instructors who have learnt their trade. They've spent hours out there on a game field. They've spent hours on a shooting ground, okay, and come up through the ranks. Jono, sorry, I got a bit off the track there. I hope that answers the question. Shot in the same squad as Richard Foles. His timing is like an atomic clock. Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Simon is just something that is amazing. Richard, sorry. If my gun was fixed full and improved chokes, what is the ultimate load for high pheasants for Hornby and the likes? Okay, so that was kind of my point with Teague. Ignore what it says on the choke. If it says full, or it says 3/4, or it says improved, to me, that's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is what does that actually produce. And let me give you a classic example of this. So I sent 2 pairs of Parazzis to Teague and told him to regulate both guns, and I wanted some open chokes to shoot grouse with. So I wanted a gun that was going to pattern really well between kind of 25 and 40 yards from a grouse stuff. Okay, and then I wanted some chokes that would pattern, okay, with 34 gram 4 whole high pheasants, okay, extremes, and I wanted that 50 yard plus. Both guns go away. Both guns come back with entirely different chokes in. Now I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, this is bonkers, just like I did. However, I then tackle Teague on it. He sends me all the pattern boards, and basically both guns behaved slightly differently. Okay, now you could say that the guns are supposed to behave exactly the same. Don't get hung up on what the choke is, whether it's 3/4, full, 5/8, whatever it is. Spend the time, okay, and learn what you need to shoot through your gun. Charlotte, what is the best age to start my son shooting? Ooh, great question. As many of you'll know that my 7-year-old shoots. What I would say is when he's ready to shoot. So I was really surprised with Anna, which she begged me for a gun. I expected her never to use it. Actually, she loves it, and she shoots when, if I'm honest, when she asks to shoot. To me, the an ideal age to start shooting is around the kind of 8 to 10. By that time, you're usually physically able to shoot. But there's nothing wrong with starting 10-year-olds on. I think be very careful. Personally, I like to focus on the safety. Make sure that you don't overgun them. a classic thing is getting them shooting too difficult targets. Okay, as many of you know, I use Royal Berkshire a lot. They have some great, really novice, simple targets for youngsters just to battle away at. Don't get too hung up on having the youngsters standing correctly and doing all this sort of stuff. Okay, what I would say is get them shooting, get them enjoying it, get them breaking targets, and then slowly but surely, okay, start and look at how they're standing, what they're doing. Gun fit is another quite important thing. Make sure, I'm a big fan of using neoprene stock covers for youngsters, so there's no face recoil. It encourages them to keep their head on the gun. So I would say between 8 and 10 is when I would start. I agree. If you have a spare John O'Herby, if you have a spare hour, follow an instructor. It's never a wasted hour. This is about mindset, a growth mindset experience. Well said. Okay. John O'Herby, pattern matters, pattern kills. Okay, yeah, I agree with that. Robert Everett, 32 gram 4. I'm not quite sure where that's going, but anyway. Guys, keep the questions rolling in. One of the other things that I've been asked why through emails and various direct messages and what have you is about the whole grouse thing. So as many of you know, something that I'm I was going to say famous. That sounds incredibly big-headed. I do not mean it like that at all. One of the things that I do a lot of is grouse. And I'm frequently asked, what am I doing that's different to everybody else from a grouse point of view? I wouldn't say I am doing anything different. One of the things I would say is that I have spent not an inconsiderable amount of money building a grouse layout that I think is as close to allowing you to practice the whole grouse situation as you can. And what's really important for me is the following. One, you must be able to see a target in front, turn and shoot it behind, okay? Because, like it or not, somewhere between 35 and 40% of your grouse are going to be shot out the back, and people just don't practice that. Multiple targets, okay? I take so many people and I'll take them onto a grouse layout. They'll absolutely smash a single target, stand there and shoot it all day, left, right, up, down, wherever it's coming, they'll destroy it, okay? Then I give them 2 targets, so they'll kill the first target and the chances are they'll break the second. If you ramp that up a little bit, okay, and end up with a situation where you've got 4 targets coming at you simultaneously, all of a sudden there's a whole new ball game. Quite simply, first of all, you've got to choose the right target to shoot. I'm amazed how many people, I'll send a pack of 4 grouse or clays to them, and they'll put a barrel straight in through the middle of a pack of 4 of clays, let alone grouse. So imagine what's happening when you're shooting a big pack of grouse that can be anywhere from 50 to 100 strong, okay? It is a real skill set learning how to shoot multiple targets. And what I mean by that, multiple targets coming at you at pace, at speed, okay, choosing one and shooting it. Okay, so something I would say to you, first of all, you need to be practicing on the right areas. If you're not having multiple targets launched at you, then the chances are, to me, your practice isn't as effective as it could be. So that's where I would first go, is make sure that you're practicing in the right area. Jono asked the question, the best preparation for first drive on a grouse day. Do you know what? I have to confess, when I'm shooting grouse myself, what I like to do, I like to get myself in the grouse book. Ideally, I know this is not always possible, but I love having somebody with me that I've worked with before. I think it's fine going and shooting pheasants and partridges on and having a loader that joins you from an estate. But if you can go on your grouse drive with somebody that you know and trust and you've worked together before, it's all much easier. The biggest thing that I tell people about their first drive on a grouse day is kill one. It's that simple, okay? We're all nervous. Anybody who tells me that they're not nervous about that first pack of grouse coming at them. So I will let them come closer than I perhaps normally would, and I'll just make sure I get one dead on the floor. Once I've got one dead on the floor, the chances are that actually, I'm in a situation then when my confidence is suddenly starting to pick up, and I'll kill another. Okay, so I start off slowly, get one dead. Once you've killed one, then you can move on to another, slowly but surely. Build your confidence. I don't know anybody in the world who walks straight out on their first drive of a grouse drive and shoots a left and right in front and a left and right out the back. I know you've done 3, Jono, by the way, before you actually come back at me. Thank you very much for that. Best grouse, most memorable grouse you have ever shot. Okay, that's actually quite an interesting one. I would have to say the most memorable grouse I've shot, and some of you will know this young lady, is probably with a client of mine, a 9-year-old, and stood in a grouse boat. In fact, we weren't stood in a grouse boat because she actually couldn't see over the grouse boat, so I stood her by the side of the grouse boat, okay, with her father in the next boat, okay, and there was a grouse that literally came kind of between the two, and I could see her dad was obviously looking at this grouse thinking, actually, she's never going to hit this anyway, so I'm going to shoot it. And at about 45 yards, she shot it with an 11-gram 7.410, and absolutely stoned it. I'm not sure who was more surprised, her father, me, or her, but that was probably one of the most memorable grouse that I've seen shot. By the way, that young lady is now, I think she's now 14 or 15, and she will be somebody who will certainly go on to shoot a lot of grouse and is incredibly capable. Let's try and... Simon Reinhold, would you ever shoot competition to practice controlling the nerves? Great question. To be honest with you, I have a number of my grouse clients that I shoot sporting clays with, and they look at me like I'm being beamed up from Mars. But grouse clients, you end up with all sorts of different speeds and angles. So I think any form of pressured shooting helps you. It helps you to, what I do call, make the shot. And let's face it, what's the difference whether it's a clay, a pheasant, or a grouse? We've all got to kill it if we can. Okay, so I think the same pressure is there all the time. So, pardon me, it depends very much on what you what puts you off your stride, shall we say. We need to make sure that you're practicing something that keeps you current. My gun had 3-inch chambers in his board 18.7. Would there be a disadvantage using 2.5-inch cartridges compared to 2 3/4? The same gram shot size, would I lose pressure? Great question. Crikey, there's some cartridge geeks hopefully in here who are better equipped to answer this than... I mean, the first thing is, in theory, you're losing pressure because of the chamber, and in theory you're losing pressure because of the gun being bored 18.7 with a fibre wad. I'm assuming everybody's shooting fibre. The only thing I would say, in practical terms, as many of you know, I'm very fortunate that I shoot a beautiful pair of Fabras now, so it's a little bit elementary, but my old Parazzis are 18.7. That was the craze when I bought them some 15 years ago. Excuse me. And I would say I've shot all sorts with those Parazzis. So, in theory, you are absolutely correct that you are disadvantaging yourself. In practice, I would argue that if you put that shot in the right place, which is the same with any kind of shot we make, then I would have to say that actually that will have more impact on your accuracy, for want of a better word, than you ever will on losing performance due to you shooting the wrong, the gun being bored wrong, or the chamber length. Can I talk about the pros and cons of your job? It seems like a dream job to any shooting fanatic. Okay. Hey, I'm incredibly fortunate. Particularly in the last 2 years, I probably get 1, if not 2 CVs a week of people wanting to come and work for me because they think that they are going to be able to live the dream, so to speak, of the shooting world. what I think everybody forgets is, first of all, I've served nearly a 20-year apprenticeship, okay, to get to where I am. Okay, so, I've literally, I did nearly 10 years at Churchill's, started at the bottom and worked my way up. And that is unbelievably important. So people imagine that they're just going to become an Adam Calvert tomorrow. That's not me being big-headed. You've got to spend the time. I think everybody forgets that what I do requires a huge amount of time away from home. So I'm probably, I'm away from home 100 to 150 nights a year. I do thousands and thousands of miles. One of my clients recently worked out that I spend a month in the car a year, which is just, bonkers. But I love it. Let me be honest. I get to see and go places where very few people will ever get to be. I've been on days that have been the most amazing days and seen the most amazing things. The big thing that I really love about my job is the clients. I get to meet the most amazing people, okay, and often spend time with them one-on-one, who are absolutely fascinating. As many of you know, I'm a big kind of supporter of young shots. I love spending time with kids. There is nothing more satisfying than watching a child shoot something. All adults kind of do the whole, yeah, I did quite a good shot there, where kids are like, yes, I absolutely killed it, and to me that's, having a daughter myself, it is fantastic. So there are lots of pros and there are lots of cons. I would advise people to think very carefully. I have employed a number of people who think they're going to love the job, and suddenly they find it's a heck of a lot tougher than they thought it was going to be. When they've spent 3 months away from home, basically living out of a suitcase, looking after people, then it's not all roses, trust me. But lots of upsides as well. Ed Solomon's brilliant job, 1,000% harder than people think. What's your favourite estate to shoot grouse on? Ooh, crikey. I think, crikey, what's my favourite? I'm kind of biased here, simply because I'm very fortunate. One of my great friends is a guy called Steve Colmer, who, he'll get all embarrassed now, but he's probably been one of my greatest mentors in the grouse world, and what Steve doesn't know about grouse shooting probably isn't worth knowing. And he is the head keeper at Allen Heads, Muggleswick and Stubblick, as many of you'll know. So I love that place. I love it because I feel part of it and I spent a lot of time there. I would have to say probably the most stunning estate that I've seen, and I wasn't actually shooting, I was watching, was probably Milden. Awesome place. I love Narsdale. I love Glen Ogle. There are lots of different grouse moors. I think Bransdale I said last time as well. I love that whole North Yorkshire stuff. So that's what I would say about the grouse situation. Who have been and who are your shooting mentors? Crikey. You, Jono, obviously. To be honest with you, I've been a massive fan of a lot of different people, and I don't know who I was talking to the other day, but I actually said, particularly instructors wise, I would say more instructors than shooting mentors. I mean, obviously the great Archie Coates, I read all sorts about Archie. There was another guy called Kenzie Thorpe, who was a goose guy, who I read loads about when I was a youngster. And I suppose, but if I went back years and years ago, then my father was a huge game shot, loved shooting game. We used to, that was the thing that me and him did every Saturday, who's still alive, by the way, my father. So he was definitely one of my mentors, and got me going doing the whole thing. I would find it difficult to actually pick individuals out, but lots of the people who I've seen, Duke of Northumberland, I think is amazing, just because of his ability and how he goes about. He's such a gentleman. I've seen him do some amazing things. And to give you an example of that, I was stood on one side of him watching him shoot grouse last season, and on the other side of him was a novice, and he made it very clear to the novice that the novice was to get stuck in. And I watched the Duke all day back off and not shoot grouse, run into this guy, or even come in near him, or even let the novice shoot first. And all right, the Duke would probably kill it after he'd shot at it, but he was incredibly gentlemanly. So I think those sorts of guys would be my mentors. Have I ever taught Darren how to shoot a looper yet? He struggles under pressure. So we're finding, okay, that's Darren Easter, one of my guys who actually works for me. Funniest thing you've witnessed in a grouse butt? Oh dear. Probably the funniest thing I've witnessed in a grouse butt was looking after a team of Americans. And I looked after a team of Americans back in the Churchill days, and there was one particular guy who this American team wanted to go for a curry, and they all went for a curry the night before. We took them all, and the next morning on the first drive, it would be fair to say that there was a slight call of nature required by this particular American client. And there'll be a couple of people watching here who will remember this. And he felt the need to go and do what nature required. So the drive had literally just started. So he ran out the back of the butt. Okay, unbeknown to him, he ran straight towards a lady picker-up and got within literally 30 yards. Okay, and you've guessed it, he didn't see her and turned around and did what he needed to do and felt much better about it. And this lady picker-up didn't know what to do, as I'm sure you can imagine. But anyway, Matt Smith, client falling asleep in the butt. Yes, we have had a client fall asleep in a grouse butt. What's the highest target you've ever seen killed? I've seen lots of big stuff shot. If I'm honest, usually a lot of that big stuff I have a strange feeling. A lot of people would call it fluke and things. I've seen some snipe shot that you just think are massively out of range and never been killed. And, you know, I have to say, and I'm going to be controversial now, I think we all need to slightly think about what we're doing from an ethical point of view of shooting extreme birds. And you all know I go to Drumlanrig. You all know I'm a massive fan. I am a big fan of shooting extreme partridges. I think they're much more killable than a pheasant. I think we need to be very careful wounding lots of pheasants. I think that would be my view on the whole kind of extreme kind of shooting, so to speak. I did skip over. There was a question here that I wanted to answer somewhere. I now can't find it. I've lost it. I can't find it. Right, guys. We've been going for quite a while. Anybody got any final questions that we want to finish up with? I've got a list of questions that's a absolute mile long, but I'm aware we've been on for nearly another half an hour already. So I'm thinking of calling it a day. Anybody who has the best dog in your family? Okay, Jono, you're just being controversial now. Clearly me, okay. Unfortunately, obviously, when Mrs. Calvert's out, then they all belong to Mrs. Calvert, as you all know, okay. And we have a new dog, which I'm not even going to talk about because that's a subject that we need to talk about with Ricky next time. By the way, Jono, you need to come and shoot this fox that you're telling me I need to walk around and try and find it rather than trying to shoot it out of the car. Because it had another lamb last night, unfortunately, even though I was out. Mrs. Calvert, yes, you definitely, I know. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Sorry about the start when we ended up in a situation where I was on the wrong account. And I'm sure you all quickly worked out what happened there. But thank you very much for joining us. And just to run through again, on the 12th Then I've got Ricky Maloney, and we're going to talk about gun dogs and trialing and all those sorts of things. Okay. On the 18th, I think this will be really exciting. We've got the BGA new guy, Liam Stokes. Again, I think that will be really, really useful. And then on the 27th, we've got the Basque guy. So start and get your questions in, guys. Good luck, everybody, and stay safe.